Hello everyone, welcome to the Hackers Congress in Paralellopolis. I'm glad to see you all here. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. So the theme of today's presentation is the future of crowdfunding, or what we see today as the initial coin offerings. My name is Ondřej Pilný, I'm the co-founder of ICO Index, and this is the agenda for today. I will briefly go through the history of crowdfunding. Then I will talk about raising funds through initial coin offerings and why do startups choose initial coin offerings as the way to raise money. Then I'm going to look at ICOs from the different perspective and why do people participate in the initial coin offerings. And then we are going to discuss a bit if we are already in the bubble, because it seems like there are so many ICOs and raising so many funds that we might be already in the bubble territory. So I will talk about it later as well, because I think it's already important to mention that. And at the end, we will have a discussion. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, do not hesitate and just raise your hand and ask straight away, but keep the discussions for after the presentation. So, okay, there's a first question. Okay, good point, good point. Okay, so let's start with the history of crowdfunding, of the modern crowdfunding. In 2009, Kickstarter, the well-known crowdfunding platform, was started. And throughout the years, there were a lot of projects that raised money through this platform. They created the products and they offered it to the public, and people put money in these products and the startups could develop their products. There were so many successful crowdfunding campaigns. And one of them was Oculus Rift. I chose this one as an important one because this one was one of the most well-known and most successful startup that started in Kickstarter through crowdfunding. They raised $2.4 million to create a virtual reality set, and which became later very successful. 1 year after, in the alternate sphere, in the crypto sphere, the first ICO happened. The first ICO was called the Mastercoin. They raised 5,000 bitcoins, which was around $500,000 at that time, and they created a platform which allowed other people to create coins on top of the Mastercoin platform. And for example, now you can know MadeSafe coin or US dollar Tether. They are all based on Mastercoin, which is now called the Omni layer. And 2 years after the crowdfunding campaign of Oculus Rift, they sold the whole company to Facebook for $2 billion. And all people that participated in the crowdfunding 2 years before, they didn't get a single penny from that. They gave their money to support the product, but at the end, like the company was sold for $2 billion and they didn't get anything. They were just left with the first version of Oculus Rift. This is the fundamental thing why ICOs are now more interesting than Kickstarter, for example. And in the same year, 2014, one of the most well-known projects in the cryptosphere, the Ethereum Foundation, had their ICO. They raised $18 million, and from that point, the ICOs started like more and more and coming more and more ICOs, because they realized that they can also start their own project like that. And now in 2017, there are hundreds of ICOs every month. And now the valuation of Ethereum is 28 billions. And the people that supported Ethereum in the beginning, and they hold on to their tokens for longer enough, they they evaluated their investment, so they got rewarded for their participation. In Oculus, the people, they didn't get rewarded enough so for the money that they spent. So this is the basic difference between ICOs and traditional crowdfunding. But what are ICOs actually? A lot of people now they see the ICOs and they see like some of the projects they are very good investment. They think like, yeah, let's put money in this because it's a good investment. But ICOs are not just an investment. It's more things combined together. I look at ICOs from this perspective. I look at it as an investment, as a donation, as a crowdfunding, all combined together. I think it is an investment from the participants' point of view, because they anticipate that the price of the tokens will raise over time and thus will evaluate their initial investment. From the project's point of view, it is a crowdfunding because they want to include as many people as they can in the project and they want to create a network effect. And it is a donation as well, because if you read the terms and conditions of most ICOs, they stay there. This is a donation. It is not an investment. So do not expect that the token value will rise over time. This is from legal perspective. They try to kind of like avoid the regulations because, for example, the SEC and other like in China and Korea, like the regulators, they are trying to say that the tokens issued in ICOs are actually securities. So they kind of like they try to say it's a donation, and they think they can avoid the regulations. So ICOs are kind of combination of investment, donation, and crowdfunding. So let's have a look on ICOs from the startup perspective. Why do startups choose ICOs as a means of funding their business? There are basically three types of projects that nowadays are raising funds through initial coin offerings. The first type of projects are new blockchain platforms such as Ethereum, Eternity, Lisk, EOS, Tezos, and others. They create their own token, which they offer in their initial coin offering. And for these projects, it is essential that they have the token because they need to create a game theory on their platform to incentivize other users, other players, developers to participate in their ecosystem. And if they would create, for example, a for-profit foundation, this wouldn't be possible. So for these projects, it is essential to have an ICO and not other ways of funding. And there are also decentralized applications that are built on top of these protocols, on top of these blockchains, that also raise money in ICOs. And then the third type are tokenized funds, such as Blockchain Capital and TAS, which issue their own tokens. They raise money, and then they use the money to invest in other cryptocurrencies, crypto assets, and tokens. And then via smart contract, they distribute the profit to the token holders. So there are differences between venture capital, ICOs, and traditional crowdfunding. I would like to now focus on that. When you are a startup and you want to raise money, then you have to decide like which way are you going to go. If you decide for the venture capital, you get the advantage of smart money. People that invest in you, they usually know the business well, so they can support you with your project. On the other hand, they don't have such a good network effect because there are just few people, so the network effect is not so effective. Then you lose a bit of your autonomy because you need to give a bit of the equity to the investors, so you lose a bit of the control. And one thing is that mostly VCs they work on a regional level. For example, there are VCs in California or in Central Europe, and they operate in regions. They are not global all the time. So if you are a startup, you look regionally for your investors. And then the main upsides are that you get smart money from the people, and you get support in the worst times. You get support from your investors. The problem is that they usually have low valuations in these projects compared to ICOs. And then if you look at Kickstarter, you don't get smart money, you just get money from all the people you can find. You get the network effect because a lot of these crowdfunding platforms, they help the projects to have the network effect, and it's easy to share on the social media, so you can easily get a lot of new users. You don't lose your control of the company because you don't give the equity, and it's very good for market validation. If you have a new product and you want to try it on the market, you put it on Kickstarter, and then you see if people are actually interested in it or not. But the disadvantage here is the marketing budget, because when you just put it on the platform, you need to support it with a lot of marketing. If you put the project on Kickstarter, it doesn't just spread around, so you need to support it with a lot of money for the early marketing. And then through ICOs, it's completely different. I'm not saying it's better, it's just different. It's good for other types of projects. So you don't get the smart money as from VCs because you get the money again from all the people, and you cannot listen to all the crowd. And the good thing is the network effect, because now there is such a huge hype, and if you have a successful ICO, then everybody will know about you. And you don't lose any control, because you keep all the control within your company, and you can look for the investments all around the world. And a lot of projects, they decide for ICOs now because they see the high valuations of really early stage projects, and you still keep your whole control. But the main disadvantage is that you get too much money. The too much money can hurt the startup, because if they raise, for example, $100 million, what it can do to them is that they may lose focus, or they might think, we already have the money, so why should we try more? This can actually happen to a lot of ICOs. And the volatility of the tokens that are traded on exchanges can also disturb their forecast. So this is kind of like the disadvantage of ICOs at the moment. So there are basic fundamentals why ICOs are like different for funding than VCs or Kickstarter. And I would say that the good ICOs, they decide for this way because they want to be decentralized, and they need a tokenization model in their project. They are somehow using a tokenization model, and they're combining tokenization model with game theory. And if the project wouldn't have the token, then they wouldn't be able to be so successful. For example, with Ethereum, they chose this model because it was the best way to go. A lot of startups, they actually they don't care about these. They are the bad ones. They just go after the hype. They don't care if they need to be decentralized. There are so many projects now in 2017. They just go after the easy money and greed because they see the high valuations. So these are the bad ICOs. They just go after money and they see the hype. So these projects are usually the ones that fail very easily, very early. And this is the holy grail of the token economy. This is why startups that are open source have a fundamental advantage over the others. So if you look in the past, in the web, there were protocols. There were protocols developed by open source projects, and these projects, they created so much value for the whole humanity. But the problem is that they captured only little. They captured only little of the value. And then there were applications such as Facebook, Gmail, or Airbnb and others, and they created these applications on top of these protocols, but they created a large amount of value, but they captured way more than the protocols. Now, if you look in the blockchain sphere, in the cryptocurrency sphere, we see that the projects that create these protocols, they create huge values, but they also capture huge values. So this is the fundamental difference, why it makes sense for open source projects and for projects that look more on the value that they create. For projects that they don't care about profit, they care more about the value that they create. And the game theory is very important, because these protocols, if people want to use these protocols, if other people want to develop application on these protocol layers, they need to use the token. In the case of Ethereum, if you want to build a decentralized application, you need to use the Ether token, which then brings the value to the whole ecosystem. Currently, there are around 700 decentralized applications built on the Ethereum blockchain. So this shows the utility of the token. And as I mentioned before, there are a lot of bad ICOs, a lot of bad projects that they have the token just as a way of crowdfunding. They didn't realize is that the token must be a protocol layer, or it needs to have a utility. They just have it as a way of funding, and they don't think about the token why it should be useful. So this is like how you can distinguish between the interesting and the bad ICOs. So me personally, I participate in a lot of ICOs, and I would say there are basically three types of people that buy tokens or participate in ICO. The first one are the long-term hodlers that participate in the ICOs, and they hold the tokens for a long time, for a year or two, and they wait until the project is finished, and then maybe they sell a little. Then nowadays there are a lot of speculators. They just buy the tokens in the ICO and then they try to sell it at the exchange when the price doubles, triples, or goes higher. And then there are users, there are developers, and there are people that actually want to use these tokens, but they just buy very little. They just buy for their own use, or they just want to support these projects. So currently in 2017, I would say that the speculators and the long-term holders are the biggest groups that participate in ICOs. And some people, they just come like new to cryptocurrencies and they have a look at Ethereum and they see like, wow, the price is $295 today. And in the ICO, it was just 30 cents. So they think like, wow, let's look for other ICOs. Maybe I can make money as well. And they see then this table and there are also other ICOs and they see that they also have like a large return on investments. But this is bullshit. Because these are just the few that survive. There have been 100 ICOs in the past and most of them failed. But they will never get to this table. So 95% of ICOs will fail. 95 or maybe more. I don't know, because there are so many now. And it's because they just don't get it. They just raise money for projects that are complete junk or complete bullshit. I would say 77% of all ICOs that you see today are complete junk. They shouldn't get funded and they shouldn't be supported because they are there just for the quick money. They're greedy and they just go after the hype. And there are also a lot of scams. If you plan to participate in ICOs, be careful because some of them are clever. They copy the whole project and they look like a legit one and they just disappear with the money. So there are a lot of scams, a lot of junk. Be careful. And then there are some projects that are interesting. They seem to be interesting. Maybe they should get funded. Maybe they can try it. But who knows if they are going to be successful or not. And then maybe 2% are the next ICO unicorns like Ethereum, Lisk, Neo, or others. Those that actually develop something useful and unique that people will use in the future. But this is a very small portion of all the ICOs. This is called the survivalship bias. When people see just the successful ones and they don't see the junk, they don't see the scam. So they just see the successful ICOs and they think that if they put money in the ICOs, they will also earn. But it's not true. Most of the people that participated in ICOs will actually lose most of their money. So from the investor's perspective, are ICOs actually interesting or not? If you are a venture capitalist, you can choose whether you are going to participate in, if you are going to invest in startups or ICOs. So as a venture capital, if you invest in startups, you have some amount of risk which you are aware of, and you count with that. And there is a huge upside potential as well, because you know that some of these startups will become maybe the next Facebook or something. And what you get as a reward is equity. For your money, you get equity, the part of the company. The problem with venture capital is the liquidity. You need to wait quite a lot before you can actually sell your investment or reinvest. So this is the main thing that venture capitalists have problem with nowadays. And you need a lot of money to be a venture capital investor. But on the other hand, you also get early access to the investments, and you get a control of the company. You can kind of steer where the startup is going, and you can help them. With Kickstarter, I would say if you just like put some money in the Kickstarter, there is no risk because you just participate with small amount of money, and of course there is no upside potential. You get just the products, and the capital you need is just a few bucks. And what you get is discounted products. So I wouldn't say Kickstarter is an investment. It's just a crowdfunding platform because you don't get any profit. So the ICOs now, as a mean of investment, are super risky. As I mentioned before, most of them will fail. So they are very, very risky. Some of them, the unicorn ones, which I don't know, which are of course, have a huge upside potential. And most of them are very liquid because most of the time when they end their ICO, they are listed on the exchanges and you can sell these tokens and get a quick profit. So it's good for speculating as well. And you need just a low amount of capital to participate in the ICOs. You don't need hundreds of $1,000 to participate in ICOs. You can just participate with $100, and they are open for everyone, with some exceptions, maybe US or China. So anyone can participate in the ICOs, but they're very risky. Be careful. Like this is the huge thing that most people didn't realize, that they're very super risky, and you don't have any control of the company. You don't know what is going there. You cannot. There are no like. You cannot decide what is going to happen with the project. You don't have voting rights in the project. And if you plan to participate in ICOs, you should understand the fundamental differences between investing in stocks and investing in tokens. If you are an outside investor, then for your money, you get a part of the ownership. And then the organization, they generate economic activity and they get cash in reward. In the token economy, which is different, the outside investors, they give cash, they buy the tokens, and then these tokens are issued by the company, and they get back the value. So you don't have a control of the company at all. You have a portion of the whole utility, the utility that the project is creating. This is fundamentally different than from stocks. And you should keep in mind that if you buy tokens, there are no ownership rights, there's no equity, nothing. It's just a token, and most of the time the token is useless. So if you actually still plan to participate in ICOs after all of this, you should definitely look for some fundamentals. Just don't look at the hype. Definitely don't look at celebrities that promote ICOs, because most of them are junk or even a scam. There was a case, one ICO got promoted by a boxer, American boxer. I don't know how much they had to pay him, but it was ridiculous. So if you want to look at the fundamentals, you should definitely research what is their tokenization model. What is the role of the model in their token economy? If there's no reason to have the token in there, then probably the utility value of the token will never raise over time. The price can raise because of speculations, but over time the token will never gain in value. Then definitely you need to look on the team. A lot of the teams, they just start like 3 people with no experience, and they don't maybe have a skill. So you should look if they have the right skill, if they have the experience, if they have the connections, and look at the problem that they are trying to solve. A lot of projects, they create a problem and they think blockchain is the solution, and a lot of time it doesn't make sense, because blockchain is not it's not the solution for everything. So a lot of ICOs, they think that they got it, but usually it's just bullshit. Then you need to look at the business model and white paper, and of course timing is very important. A lot of projects, they come too early. They come very early in the sphere. They feel like now it's the time. But it will be similar like in the dot-com bubble, when a lot of projects, they came too early and people were not prepared. So a lot of projects will have the same problem. They will face the same problem. And community is very important as well, because a lot of these projects, they need the community to help them to spread the word around the projects and tell others. And this is like the basic curve. It's called a J curve. I was inspired by Chris Berniski, who came up with this. And the thing is that when the model comes into the ICO, there are a lot of speculators. Then they drive the price up, and then quickly it sinks down, because people realize that actually there is no utility value, because it has still not been developed. So before the development, like it sinks down, and then as soon as it starts being developed, people realize like, oh, actually the project might be useful. So they kind of start buying, and as soon as there are the first releases, all the people, they start buying more and more. So if you actually are a fundamental investor, if you are a long-term investor, you should maybe wait until the development phase, and then not buy in the ICOs, but after. And this is like in the past years, the VC funding was preceded by the ICO fundraising. There are so many millions have been raised through ICOs, and this is actually outdated. The August and September are still missing, and I think it was even more than 400 million. So the question is, are we in a bubble now? Who thinks we are already in a bubble territory? I can see like more than a half. Okay. So one more question. Where do you think we are right now? Do you think that we are in the smart money, institutional investors, or which territory? Can you raise your hand if you think we are still in the smart money? Okay, there are just two people. Do you think we are institutional investors? Do they participate? Okay, not so many. So most people think that we are here. Okay, okay. So they used to call this the bubble, and now we are here. So let's see where we go. No one knows now. I would say that it's going to go like this. It's going to go up and down, and maybe we'll end up somewhere there. But I would say like the dot-com bubble, it was 2.9 trillion, and the crypto bubble is still 148 billion. So there's still, maybe the bubble can grow even more. I don't know. Maybe it can go to 1 billion, 5, 10, I have no idea. But one day, the bubble will burst and all the prices will go down. So if you want to participate in ICOs, be prepared for that. If you want to buy tokens, be prepared. The bubble will burst, but no one knows when, and no one knows how much it will sink down. So with that, I would like to open the discussion. And do we already have some questions? Maybe you can. Okay, there is one question.
Okay.
Hello, thank you for your talk. You made a difference between, I'm here.
Okay.
And you made a difference between tokens with the usage value, and
Yes.
you don't talk about tokens of equity. Do you think it's a thing for future, like companies that distribute tokens, meaning equity?
If tokens can be equity.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. There are already projects that are developing this, and they will create tokens that will be actually representing equity in the company. So it is definitely possible. It's the thing is that the token, you can attribute the aspects to the token. If you are sure, you can say what the token will do. You can say it will be equity, so it will represent the equity. It's definitely possible. Yes.
Do you know some good example of complete junk ICO?
Oh yes, so many, so many. Sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between a junk and a scam, because sometimes you feel like these people, they maybe they're just trying to scam, but maybe they don't know it. They don't know it yet. So I would say it was called Monkey Capital, and I was reading through their website and the white paper, and it made no sense. It was just complete jargon, and it was just buzzword, blockchain, decentralized, and didn't make any sense at all. And at first I thought it's a junk, but then I realized it was actually a scam. So sometimes like they kind of overlaps, or yeah, like I would say like most of the time it's junk overlaps in scams. So for example, this one, Monkey Capital, it was complete junk.
Hi, could you elaborate more on the difference on a slide where you had the Ethereum on one side, and there was like somewhere in the middle of the presentation, and you basically said that the good and bad ICOs are, you differentiate based on, go back, much further, not even more.
Oh, okay, I know.
And
this
yeah,
one?
here, yeah.
This
And
one,
you
okay.
basically said that on the right side, you differentiate between the good ones and the bad ones based on the level of utilization of the protocol layer. So could you go in more detail here?
If I understand correctly, like if the good ones are the protocol layer, or well, I would say like the good. There are a lot of ICOs now, and not all of them create protocols. Some of them are decentralized applications. Some of them are other projects. But I would say now we are still in the early phase, and we are still in the development. So I would say we are like in maybe like 95 of the web. So in the beginning, first we need to create the protocols, and then once the protocols are created, people start creating the application layers. But honestly, like I would say that we still don't know what blockchain or other platforms that are created can be used for. I would say that people they think like they can use it for everything, and they always think that like if if you only have a hammer, then everything looks like a nail, like the solution. So I would say we are still early. So me personally, I think that the protocol layers, they have the biggest chance of success. And with applications, we still don't know which one will be successful or not.
Thank you for the talk. I have a question. What is the legal status of doing ICOs in Europe? You mentioned SEC in the States and in the Asia area. So is there actually a legal way for a private company to collect money this way? Let's say if all the participants in the ICO are anonymous.
Okay.
Thank you.
On Monday and Tuesday, I was in Vienna. It was called Token Regulation Summit, and this was the main topic. And I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not giving anyone legal advice, but from my point of view, I think they don't know either. All the regulators, the lawyers, they think, but they don't know what is legal or what is not. For example, they don't know what should be taxed and what is legal or not. I would say in Switzerland, they are way further from the European countries. So if someone is planning to start an ICO, I think you should contact Swiss lawyers or in Gibraltar. These two countries in Europe, they are further in the regulations and in the legal system. And European Union is still, I think, researching. They still, I think, they don't know yet what to think about ICOs. So I would say it's like in the shady area. It's not illegal, but it's not completely illegal. You can never be sure in European Union.
Thank you for the speech. I wanted to ask you if you've heard about La Token.
Yes.
It's a tokenization of stocks, commodities, and even real estate. And if you think it's because it sounds to me that it has big added value to the whole blockchain. Mm-hmm. So your opinion?
I've heard about the project. To be honest, I didn't do complete research because I saw the way they were communicating the project, and at the beginning I thought it's an outright scam, because what they were saying is that their tokens will raise to trillions of dollars, and they were kind of like trying to rule people that they will earn money. So this was one thing that completely put me off. And the way how they were communicating was completely not unprofessional. So I didn't research further on the project. To be honest, I've heard about it, but I don't know much. I didn't go further, because when I see that the project is communicating in a way as a scam, as like promising returns, then I lose interest very quickly. So I didn't research on that one.
Yeah, they said that they sell Apple stocks, like Apple tokens, and other big companies in the world, and I just didn't know how to check if this is true or not.
Yes, this is, I would say, like a claim that they make to lure more investors, but I don't know. I didn't research if they actually have that. And I have noticed that with a lot of junk or scam ICOs, what they do is that they claim partnerships with other projects to gain more trust of investors. So this could be exactly a case of a junk ICO that claimed. But to be honest, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. So I didn't do the research. I don't know.
Yeah, my question is, what is the typical business model of companies doing the ICO? So what happens after the ICO? How do they get more cash flow? And also, you were talking about the use of the token inside the system. So for investor to believe the token to go up, there should be somehow a mechanism for the token to go up.
Okay. So the first question, like, there's difference between like most of the ICOs and the good ones. So I would say, like, if the token is used in the economy and the people have to use the token, then the utility value will rise over time as well. But what they do after the ICO, they usually hire more people to develop the project, and they start building the platform. Or was that the question? Or I'm not sure if I understood.
Yeah, the question was also how they will bring more money into the company after the ICO.
Okay, so how are they going to get additional funding, you mean?
Not funding, like revenue.
Okay, so most of these projects, not all, they are non-profit, so they get actually from the tokens that they hold, because they usually they keep some of the tokens, let's say 30%, 20%, they keep it for themselves, and then later on they use it for additional funding. So the main purpose of some ICO project is not to make profit. With some ICOs they try to make profit as well, which from my point of view is a bit of conflict of interest in some cases. Do you have some other questions? Yes, here.
Hello, and thanks for the talk. I just want to ask, because you mentioned that you can choose as a startup if you want to go to VC, if you want to use Kickstarter or ICO. But from what you are saying now, it doesn't seem to be the case, because you have to have a completely different business model, different mindset to use ICO and Kickstarter.
Yes.
So is there any way for like standard startups, which are basically centralized companies and legal entities, to also use ICO, or is it strictly aimed to only decentralized application, decentralized projects?
So in the past, I would say most of the projects that we're raising through ICOs were decentralized, but now it's not true at all. Now in 2017, a lot of startups that have nothing to do with cryptocurrency or decentralization, they raise their own ICO. So I would say it's possible as a startup, but you need to make sure that the token in the startup or in the economy that you are creating makes actually sense. Because if you issue a token as a way of crowdfunding, but you don't like support the token with value, and so the token will never have a value if you don't create the kind of like the game theory. If you don't create a game theory around the tokenization, then the token is actually useless. So you need to make sure that you create a business model in a way where the token has to be used in your platform or in the project, because then if the token has to be used, then it will have a utility. If it has a utility, then it will gain in value, and then it will raise in price as well.
You can also always have a token as your internal currency for your platform, even if it's centralized, but it only creates more headache for your customers, right? So it's not really...
That's true. That's true.
And I have one more question, and it is about DAOs, like decentralized autonomous organization, where the governance is decentralized and usually token holders have voting rights.
Yes.
You mentioned that usually with your token you don't have voting rights, but I'm sure there are DAOs which do ICOs with voting rights. Do you know how many of ICOs today are actually really decentralized with decentralized governance as audit?
Yeah. So yes, you are right. There are definitely some projects that they offer the voting rights, like in DAO. That's completely correct. I would say that most of them they don't have this. They don't have the voting rights, and it's, to be honest, I don't know how many are like completely decentralized and how many are centralized. But what I see now, a lot of startups, they are having ICOs and they are completely centralized, and they just like have a startup idea, and they raised funding with an ICO, which is probably not the best thing at the moment, because they will create a bubble in the future.
Hello, so thanks for your presentation. And just I have one question and maybe one remark about La Token, because we just use it as an example of scam.
Yeah.
In our presentation, because it really had all the figures,
For me, I had
all
the
the feature of the scam from A to Z. So it's the perfect example. They made it well. They follow the rules of the scam in a good way, with video, with people, well-known people, etc. Partnership, but it really looks like that.
Yeah, for me it looked like a scam, but I said like I don't have the proofs.
Me neither. I don't have the proof. It was just as an example. So it was just about your slide on the fundamentals of the ICO. Just maybe one remark. Maybe it's also important to have access to the open source code. Also of the project, because because a lot of times they promise a lot of things, but if you don't have the code, it can be done without blockchain and everything.
Definitely.
And then my question is more about the community. What are exactly the tools to evaluate the community if you're not a technical people, to see if really they had a community behind them? Thanks.
Yeah, the community, you need to go inside of the community. You need to follow their social media on Twitter. You need to go to the Slack, to Facebook, and you need to check what the people inside of the community, what they discuss. If they discuss just the price of the token, then they are probably just the speculators. They are there just for the money. But if they discuss like when it's going to be developed, like when can we build applications on top of this platform, when can we actually use the applications, when it's going to be released, when they discuss these things, it means that the community is interested in the product and not just in the price of the token. So you need to check what the people in the community are interested in and how active they are. In Slack, you can, for example, check how many people are in the Slack chat, how many are active, how many messages are there, if they are really waiting for the project to be developed. And I have noticed that a lot of projects that have strong communities with thousands of people, they actually become successful in their ICO as well. So for example, 10x, they had one of the greatest communities. Even if in the times when they had problems, they were still supporting them. They were saying it's okay. When the price went down, all the people started saying like, let's buy more. When in bad projects, they were saying like when the price of the token sinks down, they are saying like, oh my God, maybe it's a scam. So you need to check the sentiment of the people. You need to kind of like see how they feel, and it also reflects on the whole project, because it really drives the people crazy if the people in the community, they are not supporting them, but they are just scolding them for not doing something right. So it's definitely like a sentiment that you can evaluate by reading all the messages and looking in the communities. I don't know if there are like any technical tools for that. I don't know of that. You can just go inside and read.
Okay, so we have time for the last question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your talk. If I can unpack some of it, even though you've gone, ICOs for crowdfunding, there are good and bad. I think what you're saying is that companies choosing fundraising paths, only some companies should be advised to go through the ICO as a fundraising path, yeah?
Yes.
So what else could you say about Kickstarter or crowdfunding outside of the ICO?
Kickstarter.
Yeah, well, not Kickstarter in particular. This gentleman talked about DAO and voting rights. Could you not use or encode into your coin a voting right mechanism, but actually sell with dollars for crowdfunding? Is that an option?
I think so. I think it is an option. I don't know if there is such a platform, but I think it is an option as well. I think it will happen in the future. There will probably be projects like that. I think it is an option, but it's again like it's how you set up the token, and because SEC and all these regulators, they have a problem. If you issue shares or security, then you need to be registered with them, and there are a lot of regulations for selling securities on the market. You need to be regulated, and all the investors have to go through the KYC form and everything, so it's very difficult to issue securities. So that's why a lot of projects, they don't give any voting rights, they don't give any equity, because it's complicated from the regulator's point of view, from the regulations. There was one more question, or?
No, okay, so that was the last question.
Okay.
So thank you, Ondřej, for your presentation.